at the head and foot of each to pour out tea. It was more of a hall than a room, and had high church-like windows down one,
where you pour imaginary tea into a series of cups out of an actually empty teapot.
Or hat. Finally, you can pour your tea out of 2 arm spouts. I promise they're
and important matters, and you can't even pour out a cup of tea, you imbecile. What's the point of debating?
Lighter. First, take out your tea bag and cut away the string which holds the bag together. You'll be able to open up the bag and just pour out all the tea onto a plate. And now you'll be left with just a hollow tube. Honestly, guys, I never
their appearance. Henry Wimbush had begun to pour the tea. He was one of those ageless, unchanging men on the farther side of 50, who might be 30, who might be anything. Denis had known him almost as long as he could remember. In all those years his pale, rather handsome face had never grown any older. It was like the pale grey bowler hat which he always wore, winter and summer, unageing, calm, serenely without expression. Next to him, but separated from him and from the rest of the world by the almost impenetrable barriers of her deafness, sat Jenny Mullion. She was perhaps 30, had a tilted nose and a pink and white complexion, and wore her brown hair plaited and coiled in 2 lateral buns over her ears. In the secret tower of her deafness she sat apart, looking down at the world through sharply piercing eyes. What did she think of men and women and things? That was something that Denis had never been able to discover. In her enigmatic remoteness, Jenny was a little disquieting. Even now some interior joke seemed to be amusing her, for she was smiling to herself, and her brown eyes were like very bright round marbles. On his other side, the serious moon-like innocence of Mary Bracegirdle's face shone pink and childish. She was nearly 23, but one wouldn't have guessed it. Her short hair, clipped like a page's, hung in a bell of elastic gold about her cheeks. She had large blue china eyes, whose expression was one of ingenuous and often puzzled earnestness. Next to Mary, a small gaunt man was sitting, rigid and erect in his chair. In appearance, Mr. Scogan was like one of those extinct bird lizards of the tertiary. His nose was beaked, his dark eyes had the shining quickness of a robin's. But there was nothing soft or gracious or feathery about him. The skin of his wrinkled brown face had a dry and scaly look. His hands were the hands of a crocodile. His movements were marked by the lizard's disconcertingly abrupt clockwork speed. His speech was thin, fluty, and dry. Henry Wimbush, schoolfellow and exact contemporary, Mr. Scogan looked far older and, at the same time, far more youthfully alive than did that gentle aristocrat with the face like a grey bowler. Mr. Scogan might look like an extinct saurian, but Gombold was altogether and essentially human. In the old-fashioned natural histories of the 30s, he might have figured in a steel engraving as a type of Homo sapiens, an honour which at that time commonly fell to Lord Byron. Indeed, with more hair and less collar, Gombold would have been completely Byronic. More than Byronic, even, for Gombold was of Provençal descent, a black-haired young corsair of 30, with flashing teeth and luminous large eyes. Denis looked at him enviously. He was jealous of his talent. If only he wrote verse as well as Gombold painted pictures. Still more, at the moment, he envied Gombold his looks, his vitality, his easy confidence of manner. Was it surprising that Anne should like him? Like him? It might even be something worse, Denis reflected bitterly, as he walked at Priscilla's side down the long grass terrace.